I was betrayed by my closest partner. I lost everything I built. And the woman I loved had already stopped believing in love. But what happened next shocked the investors who laughed at me. And changed the way I define success forever. This is not just the story of how I became a billionaire. It is the story of the woman who rebuilt my character. When money tried to corrupt it. And the decision that almost destroyed my empire. But saved my soul. Stay with me until the end. Because the real fortune I gained was never in my bank account. I built my empire from a rented room that smelled of dust and burnt instant coffee. My first office was a broken table. My first investor laughed at my shoes. I remember walking home in the rain. Pockets empty. Heart louder than thunder. Failure became familiar. Bank loans rejected. Partners betrayed. Friends vanished when the money did. One night I stared at the city lights. From a construction site where I worked part-time. Concrete dust clung to my skin. My hands bled through thin gloves. I promised myself that one day I would own the skyline. Years later, when success finally touched my door, it came with loneliness. That was when I met her. She did not know I would become a billionaire. She only saw a tired man who forgot to smile. She had stopped believing in love. Her fiancé had abandoned her at the altar. Trust had turned to ash in her mouth. Yet she stayed. Not for my money. There was none. She brought food to my office. When I worked through nights, she stitched the tear in my only suit. Before my most important pitch. When investors mocked my vision, she held my trembling hands and said, "Build it brick by brick. Pain is also capital." The shock came when my closest partner stole our prototype. And sold it. Everything collapsed. Again. I wanted revenge. She chose wisdom. Win with integrity, she whispered. Eyes fierce with faith I did not deserve. So I rebuilt. Slower. Stronger. We worked side by side. Sharing silence. Sharing fear. Sharing one fragile dream. The day my company went public. Cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters called me self-made. They did not see the woman who healed my rage and taught me that wealth without character is poverty dressed in silk. Tonight I stand before thousands, holding the award that proves the world was wrong about me. She stands in the crowd, still unsure if love can survive success. I step toward the microphone, ready to tell them who truly built this empire, and what I am about to ask her in front of everyone. The lights burn against my eyes. The hall is silent. I can hear my own heartbeat, pounding louder than the applause that came before. I clear my throat. This company, I begin, was born in failure. A few nervous laughs ripple through the crowd. I was betrayed. I was humiliated. I was weeks away from bankruptcy. My voice tightens. But I was never alone. Her eyes widen. I see fear there. Not of rejection. Of hope. She stopped believing in love, I say softly. And I stopped believing in myself. The room shifts. Something tender moves through the air. I thought success meant power. I thought money would silence my insecurities. I was wrong. Flashbulbs explode like distant stars. She taught me patience. When I wanted revenge. She taught me discipline. When I wanted shortcuts. She taught me dignity. When the world offered me greed. I stepped down from the stage. Gasps rise around us. My shoes echo across polished marble. As I walk toward her. The scent of her jasmine perfume reaches me. Before her trembling hands do. I built towers, I whisper. Standing before her. But you built the man. Her eyes fill with tears she refuses to let fall. I have contracts worth billions, I continue. But the only partnership I fear losing is you. Silence. Thick. Breathing. Alive. I do not want you to believe in love, I say. I want you to believe in us. In what we survived. In what we built. I lower myself to one knee. The crowd disappears. There is only her heartbeat. And mine. If I lose everything tomorrow, I tell her, I will still be wealthy. Because you chose to stay. When I was nothing. Her breath shakes. The world waits. And she opens her mouth to answer. Her lips tremble. For a moment, I see the bride she once was. Abandoned. Humiliated. Alone in a white dress soaked by rain. The crowd fades into a distant blur. She looks at me. As if love itself is standing on trial. You are asking me to trust again, she says softly. Not accusing. Not angry. Just afraid. Yes, I answer. My success means nothing if fear still owns your heart. A tear escapes despite her strength. It traces the same path pain once carved. You could lose everything, she whispers. Markets fall. Empires collapse. I know, I reply. I have slept on cold floors. I have counted coins for dinner. I am not afraid of poverty. I take her shaking hand. I am only afraid of building a future without you in it. The room holds its breath. She studies my face. As if searching for arrogance. For ego. For the man who once chased victory like oxygen. Instead, she finds surrender. I am no longer asking her to believe in fairy tales. I am asking her to believe in growth. In scars that become strength. In two broken people. Choosing courage every morning. She kneels in front of me suddenly. Ignoring the gasps around us. Her hands cradle my face. You rebuilt your company, she says, voice steady now. But you also rebuilt yourself. Her forehead rests against mine. I stopped believing in love, she confesses. Because love once left me. Her fingers tighten around mine. But you stayed. The word echoes deeper than any applause. You stayed when you were weak. You stayed when you were angry. You stayed when you were misunderstood. She inhales sharply. And tonight, you stayed humble. The air feels lighter. Warmer. I am not saying yes to your money, she continues. I am saying yes to your... We build a life that heals others too. The words strike deeper than any market crash ever could. In that instant, I realize she was never just my strength. She was my direction. The applause around us swells like a rising tide. Yet inside I feel something quiet. And sacred. I do not want our story to be about billions, she continues. I want it to be about second chances. Second chances. The phrase carries the weight of every rejection letter. Every unpaid bill. Every betrayal that once hardened my heart. I nod slowly. Yes, I tell her. We will build schools where children feel seen. We will invest in dreamers who remind me of who I was. Emotion tightens my chest. And we will prove that success without kindness is failure in disguise. She smiles then. Not the cautious smile of a wounded woman. But the radiant smile of someone stepping into belief again. I slip the ring onto her finger. It glimmers beneath the lights. Yet it feels small compared to the promise we are making. The crowd rises to its feet. Investors clap. Journalists shout questions. But she pulls me closer and whispers something that silences the entire world. If one day everything falls apart, she says, promise me we rebuild together. The request is simple, but it carries the echo of storms we have not yet faced. I squeeze her hands. I promise, I say. Because I know success is never permanent. Markets shift. Power tempts. Ego returns when least expected. And as we stand there, united before thousands, I sense that our greatest test will not come from poverty, but from prosperity, and the quiet dangers that follow it. Prosperity is seductive. It whispers that I deserve more. More praise. More control. More distance from the man I used to be. In the months that follow, our company expands across continents. Private jets replace late-night buses. Boardrooms replace construction sites. Yet I begin to notice something unsettling. Meetings grow sharper. Advisors suggest cutting employee benefits to increase margins. It is just strategy, they insist. The same phrase my former partner used before he betrayed me. Temptation returns, dressed in logic. One evening I arrive home late. The house is silent. She is sitting by the window. City lights reflecting in her eyes. You are drifting, she says gently. The words sting more than accusation. I am protecting what we built, I reply. At what cost? Silence stretches between us. I remember the cold floor I once slept on. The hunger. The humiliation. I built this empire to escape weakness. But she steps closer and places my hand over her heart. You promised to rebuild together, she whispers. Not to rebuild alone. The truth lands heavily. Success has begun isolating me. Again. The board pressures me to approve a decision that would close a factory overseas, leaving thousands jobless. Profits would soar. Shareholders would celebrate. But families would suffer. I stand in the conference room. Glass walls surrounding us like a silent prison. Every executive watches me. I think of my mother counting coins for groceries. I think of her stitching my torn suit. I think of the woman who believed in integrity when revenge seemed easier. My pulse steadies. I will not sign, I say firmly. Shock spreads across the table. We grow with people, I continue. Not at their expense. The decision costs us investors. Stock prices tremble. News outlets question my leadership. That night I walk into our home, uncertain if I chose wisdom or foolish pride. She meets me at the door. No fear. No doubt. Only quiet strength. You chose who you are, she says. And in that fragile moment, as uncertainty swirls around our future, my phone begins to ring, with a call that could either save everything or test our resolve in ways we never imagined. The screen flashes an unfamiliar international number. For a second, I consider letting it ring. Success has taught me that not every call brings opportunity. Some bring storms. I answer. A calm voice introduces herself as the director of a global humanitarian fund. We have been watching your decision today, she says. My grip tightens around the phone. She continues. You refused profit to protect workers. That is rare. Rare. The word feels heavier than praise. Our foundation invests in companies that value human dignity. We would like to partner with you. The room feels suddenly smaller. I glance at her. She stands still, reading my face the way she always has. The voice on the line explains further. Long-term capital. Ethical expansion. Shared ownership programs for employees. Not charity. Alignment. When the call ends, I remain silent. Not from shock, but from recognition. Every betrayal, every loss, every sleepless night. They were not detours. They were discipline. She steps closer. Well, I exhale slowly. We are not collapsing, I tell her. We are evolving. Tears gather in her eyes. But they are no longer tears of fear. They are tears of arrival. Weeks later, we stand inside the very factory that was meant to close. Workers gather around us. Uncertain. Guarded. I speak plainly. You are not expenses. You are partners. The announcement echoes through steel walls. Ownership shares. Education funds for their children. Healthcare protections. The applause that follows is different from the stock exchange. It is raw. Human. Earned. She squeezes my hand as we walk through the crowd. This is what I meant, she whispers. This is what she meant. Not wealth as insulation, but wealth as responsibility. That night, alone together, I realized something deeper. She did not just restore my faith in love. She redefined success. And as our foundation begins attracting attention worldwide, invitations arrive from leaders and governments, offering influence far beyond business. In a world where power can quietly corrupt even the strongest intentions. 74. Power arrived quietly. Not with threats, but with invitations. Private dinners. Political favors. Opportunities that promised faster growth. In exchange for softer ethics. I felt the old hunger stir again. The desire to dominate. To be untouchable. One evening, after a long negotiation, I stood alone on our balcony. The city shimmered beneath me. The skyline I once dreamed of owning now carried my name. Yet something inside me felt fragile. She joined me without a word. You are afraid, she said gently. Yes, I admitted. Not of failure. Of becoming the man I once hated. She took my hand. The same way she did when I had nothing. Then remember, she whispered. You were never meant to own the skyline. You were meant to light it. The sentence settled into my bones. The next morning, I declined the corrupt partnerships. Publicly. There were consequences. Criticism. Lost influence. But there was also clarity. Our company grew slower after that. Steadier. Cleaner. Employees became leaders. Factories became communities. Profits funded education and healthcare. And love, the thing she once stopped believing in, became the quiet foundation beneath it all. Years later, when interviewers ask how I became a billionaire, I tell them the truth. I did not build success alone. I built it with integrity. With patience. With a woman who refused to let pain define her. Or power corrupt me. Money can build towers. But character builds legacy. Hardship is not an enemy. It is a teacher. Betrayal is not the end. It is a mirror. And love, when rooted in courage and wisdom, does not weaken ambition. It purifies it. If there is one lesson in my journey, it is this. Build wealth if you must. Chase excellence. Work until your hands ache and your mind sharpens. But never trade your humanity for speed. Because the greatest fortune in this world is not measured in billions. Because the greatest fortune in this world is not measured in billions. It is measured in the number of lives your integrity protects. And the one heart that stands beside you when everything else fades.